We're rolling.
Marco.
Sean, I can't believe I'm actually at this table for the first time after so many podcasts. Thank you for having me.
I can't believe I have a voice left.
I know. Well, when we talk about cybersecurity, you always have to carry a little bit of weight more than me.
Well, I brought you on, but I needed some assistance, some protection, so I brought a lawyer.
Oh, you brought a lawyer. There you go.
Lawyer up.
Lawyer up.
You lawyer up against me? That's interesting. We're starting.
Actually, I think you lawyered up against me.
I did. Actually, I get the opportunity to meet with Yair Geva on a call not too long ago. We went over some of the things that you're doing and the things that you're planning to do.
Right.
So you were going to come to our RSAC conference. I said, let's meet there. Let's have a chat.
And it's great to be here. It's just a beautiful day in San Francisco.
Oh, it is. The sun is out.
Yeah, I live in London now. It's actually very hot down there too.
Oh, yeah,
but it's beautiful here.
The 1 week of the year?
The 1 week of the year, correct.
I forget one of my clients said to me, don't be fooled by this 1 day or 1 week of sunshine.
Right.
They told me that in Seattle once.
Yeah, there's that too. But I can feel the sun on my back. It's nice. I'm energized.
Nice and warm. Well, this is actually, I think it's going to be one of our last conversation, and then we're going to head back to LA. And I have a feeling we're going to see Yair again in another conference, probably in London, right?
Absolutely.
For sure, at InfoSec. So I know you do a couple of things. You're a lawyer, merger and acquisition. You work with cybersecurity company, but many other companies as well. And then you're an investor. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got yourself into this.
Absolutely. So I started as a corporate lawyer in New York with Davis Polk and Gibson Dunn, two leading firms in the city. Moved back to Israel, started the practice at Herzog, and it grew. It really significantly grew, and we work with many companies across various sectors. But of course, given Israel's prominence in cyber, a lot of the work has to do with cyber. By the way, today is Israel's Independence Day, so and it's good to see all those Israeli companies here doing and strengthening the economy.
We know many of them.
Yes,
they do an amazing job.
So. I also invest in companies, so after being lawyer for too many years, at some point you want to do, have some skin in the game, right? So I started personally investing in maybe 50 companies by now, cyber, AI, and others. One of them was just actually recognized as the most promising AI company in Israel, Descartes AI, and some of them are cyber. And then 2 years ago, we started to invest in a more institutional level for a client of the firm where I'm a strategic advisor. It's called Straight Capital, and we've just closed on the 8th investment recently. Most of them are in cyber.
So is there a passion that you have for technology and cyber, and which, by the way, nowadays you cannot talk about technology without cybersecurity. So what comes first, and what make you jump on this side?
Probably like all of us, I am tech savvy and I'm very into tech. I drove the Waymo actually first time here the other day.
It's like, move over, I'm going to drive it.
So I drove with Waymo the other day, and since then everything else seems a bit anachronistic and old. Why would anyone drive a car? It doesn't seem reasonable, doesn't make sense to me. So that's how I got a bit into it. I love efficiency. And naturally, I love deals. That's the passion that been guiding me for a long time.
So, what does that look like? How do you approach either a space or a particular company? Even is it driven by the tech, or are you connected with the founders first, and then sold on the tech, and then look at the space? What's that process like?
It's a great question, and people ask me as a lawyer, well, what are you doing here, right? Not so many lawyers are hanging around in cocktails at RSA.
Right. Instead of spot the Fed at DEF CON, it's spot the lawyer.
Spot the attorney.
So I think that to do a deal properly, there's a lot of added value for you to really understand the industry, to understand to a certain extent the technology, understand who the players are, what the motives are, who's buying what, for what reason, and actually know the people. So I know quite a few people in town, for instance, heads of M&A at various companies. I meet with them frequently. I meet with the VCs in the Valley, here, in Israel, in Europe. And I think once you're very familiar with the full ecosystem, it's really, you can play a more critical role as a lawyer. Wilson Sonsini started the model in the 70s in Silicon Valley, right? And I've read once a book about that history of Silicon Valley, and about the unique position that Wilson had taken in that ecosystem. And I said, I want to do the same in Israel. And it just makes things more spicy and interesting, naturally.
Is there, I don't know if you have a view of this or have a way to describe it, but clearly there's a magical view, if you will, of the funding that comes from San Francisco area, the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is that still the main hub? Do you see growth in other areas? Obviously, you're looking at Israel, but are there shifts there? Are there any misconceptions about what that market looks like from an investment perspective?
It's a great question. I mean, one thing that I see, being positioned, from Israel and in Europe, is that we see a great trend in the U.S. towards the East Coast, right? I'm a New Yorker. My wife is from New York, so we lived there many years, and there's definitely increase in activity in New York. Some European capitals are trying to build their ecosystem, right? And to a certain extent, being successful, right? In Italy, France, of course, London. And of course, as it relates to cyber, everything is in Israel. So you can meet everyone, the investors, CEOs, they're all there. So I think we're seeing a more like globalized ecosystem for cybersecurity.
Starting to branch out. Cool.
Yeah. So you've been here on the floor for a few days, like we have been. What's been the feel for, the pulse of the industry? AI, quantum, encryption, zero trust, what else?
Well, in a way, it all collides and consolidates into one, right? Because, I would say, and you know better than I, several years ago, cybersecurity technology was always a bit of a gap and lagging slightly beyond, the adoption of new technology, right? So it's just more conservative industry. And you could do that, for instance, in cloud, right? To a certain extent, the cloud infrastructure was moving ahead much faster than the security for the cloud. And this was possible. We know today it's no longer possible with AI, right? Because things are moving so fast and the AI enables, malicious players to act very quickly. AI and cyber now work together, right? So we see a consolidation of all the trends. Same, by the way, for quantum, right? Once you have quantum systems that allow you to break in so quickly, you just have to actually adopt much more faster than before. So that's, I think, the main trend we see. And as a lawyer and transactional person, this, of course, translates into deals, right? On Monday, Palo Alto announced the acquisition of Protect AI.
Right.
So that is one signal to where we're going, to me.
Definitely going to be, I think, a lot of merging and especially, I think, acquisition.
Yeah.
Are you going to represent AI anytime soon as a lawyer?
Hopefully, yeah. Actually, it's a great question. I kind of think a lot about
copyright.
And agents to agents, who's going to solve those disputes?
Very philosophical conversation.
Depends
we'll
how
go
much
there
they pay.
one day.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this view. So clearly investors looking for AI solutions or solutions driven or enabled by AI. What does AI do to the VC process?
I want to know.
Okay, so what I think, and this goes beyond just cybersecurity, AI actually shakes really totally the confidence of a VC as regards to investing, right? Because things move so quickly. In a way, you may be investing now in a certain technology that has certain capabilities, but your concern is what happens once technology actually, crosses that limit, right? So I think people are, in a sense, waiting, but we do not see this in cybersecurity and cybersecurity AI, which is, I think, reminds us of the day of, 2021. So we see those conflicting trends. In cyber, they move fast. Investing into AI infrastructure, or definitely the agent side, is more of a concern VCs have. And I think that affects, by the way, people were predicting a lot of exits in this year. And we've seen, of course, in terms of volume, sheer numbers, of course, once you have the Google Wiz deal, numbers are there. Right. But in terms of deal numbers, there are less acquisitions than predicted. And to me, I think that has to do with the AI and people waiting a bit to see where we're going with that.
Where it actually fleshes out.
Letting somebody jump on the train and then let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
We were talking when we met the other day about, of course, you are interested in cybersecurity. That's why you're here, technology, but what you do, honestly, it's kind of like when you do merger and acquisition. It doesn't really matter if you're dealing with a cybersecurity company or, I don't know, a fashion company or a technology, more consumer-oriented company.
Right.
I'm very curious to know that.
Okay, so, in a sense, probably 80% is the same, definitely for any SaaS, B2B company. I acted for PepsiCo when they bought SodaStream, for instance. This was just a unique deal, and everything is different, right? You have facilities and many employees and, cross-border issues, but that's consumer, right? Once you move into the enterprise sale, it's pretty much the same for you as a deal maker and a lawyer. Naturally, you want to know at the initial stages, when you actually work with the founders, we often work as bankers in a sense. It's very common in Israel, actually, for lawyers to take a more active role, in Silicon Valley too, right? So you really need to understand also the ecosystem and being familiar with the right people who are involved and what the motives are. So then there's that. But in terms of the actual legal work, it's pretty much the same for any tech company that is selling to businesses.
Yeah,
in cyber, you want to worry a bit, be more mindful of potential exposures and the like.
Well, I'm glad you went there because I think it's become, correct me if I'm wrong, but fairly common practice to evaluate cyber companies for their own cyber exposure, posture, and resilience.
That's true.
Has that also crossed over into other industries where even if it's a fashion company, they get analyzed from a cyber risk perspective?
It has, and every deal we do these days have a cyber chapter where the buyer. It's a deal that was announced. I can mention. We've sold a company here to Salesforce a few months ago. Spent some time in the city.
It's the first one they bought, I think.
Right. It was 97, I think. And cybersecurity is always an issue these days, more than before, in the due diligence process. And if you had breaches before, we like to be prepared and come with full disclosure and actually prepare in advance to address those issues as opposed to, let them kind of explode in the process.
So there's a view for the CISO role that if you're a better CISO if you've had to experience a breach. Do companies look at that the same way when they're acquiring a company? We feel you're probably better prepared now that you've gone through it. Do you see that, or does it just completely blow up a deal most of the time and you have to really work hard to?
I think it's every deal you have to justify and work hard in the same sense. But you're right.
It's a leverage, right?
Yes, it's a leverage. But naturally, we all know that once you have a dedicated team who's dealt, with response before, they're much more, fast and professional in terms of addressing the issue.
It's such a catch-22. Like it's almost like when they used to say, we talk about the gap in the industry in one of our conversation with Isaka. And I'm like, when they used to look for entry level with 10 years of experience. Right now, you're looking for a CISO that is really good at not getting breached, but if it's being breached, it's better. It's almost like
it highlights to me a point that I've noticed. With AI, many people thought that the experience gap will be less important, right? That you can do everything with AI now, and you can actually accumulate all the knowledge you need within an instance of a second. But in fact, the gap remains. And when I speak to VCs, even on the plane here from London, I was with a investor that does a lot of cyber, and that person said, look, actually, in cyber you have that mode. You have people who've been around in a certain industry for a long time. There's value to it, and I think that actually increases the confidence of investing into those companies.
Yep.
I think so, and I think I was going to touch on the other thing when you were talking about the difference, like 80-20, that is the same, 20 is different, and I feel like when in every aspect of life. When you know you're sharing an interest, some knowledge, it makes the relationship easier to handle. Even if it's just psychological, yeah, I think it helps.
Yeah, easier and more confidence, right? Deals are about confidence and removal of anxiety. Definitely when you deal with cross-border deals, right? Then the culture is slightly different, and you want to kind of have the less gaps you have, more comfortable you are.
How about the culture? I mean, New York, London, Israel, and you're kind of focusing now on the Israel market for this. Is there like any, me being Italian, I can, I have to adapt sometimes, depending who I am.
You operate a certain way.
I do operate in a certain way with Italian, that's true. But what I'm saying is that like something that switch in the way that you run your business?
Well, to me, one of the jobs I have is to be a translator, not necessarily of the language, right? But a bit of the culture and a bit of, and also, some of these entrepreneurs are young guys who are just started. They don't necessarily have very confident, extremely intelligent, and sometimes you have the role of let's slow down, let's think a bit, let's approach things differently, let's work step by step. And who speaks to who, so you guide those people, and then it has culture. But to me, these are just interface. Ultimately, everyone is looking at the same principles of integrity, full disclosure, and once you have that professional approach, and everything works, irrespective of, you may drink wine, beer, whiskey, it all works, right? So
it all works, but I think it's very human to find the similarity, and that makes people more comfortable to begin with.
True.
For sure.
True.
I have one more question, because that's my job, is to have one more question.
You should have
I'm going to go with
question.
the M&A, because you mentioned that fewer than expected acquisitions.
In a sense.
And I'm just wondering, do we see more partnerships? Because I think my experience is you start with a partnership, you date first, right? And see if it's going to work, and then perhaps if there's revenue and good market and whatever, then you get married. Are we seeing more of that?
We are seeing more. It's a great point, because when I speak about slightly less exits necessarily in this year, it doesn't mean that the companies are not growing and the exit volume is becoming, increases, and the deals are just more precise, right? They are done more in a structured way. People are not just piling up companies, rolling them over for their IPO, etc. The deals are more strategic. They have effect. You want to go into AI. You want to go into the multi-cloud, right? So accordingly, companies do partner together. They grow. They plan ahead towards once the public markets open again, which should happen pretty soon, probably 2026 should be strong. So towards that, people are actually grouping together, and we definitely see that.
One more question?
No, I'm good. But I want to think that
we'll hold them.
I know you do, but I have a feeling. Number one, this is not going to be the one and only conversation with Yael. First of all, we're going to meet where we're going as well, so that's already something. And I think that it makes me curious, really, to see where we're going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. But we're looking back at 15 years or 11 years we've been here. You more than 20. I always repeat that. But the changes. I want to close with this. I mean, the changes are getting faster and faster. So it's hard to predict. It's a hard job.
It's a hard job, and that's our job.
To be the futurist nowadays, right?
True.
But we'll try.
I'm going to close with this, because we actually, the episode we published yesterday as a closing day episode, it turned out to be resilience through innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that holds true for cybersecurity solutions, also for the investors, I presume.
Oh.
You want a resilient portfolio.
Absolutely.
But you want to drive that through innovation to reach the end goal, which is
True.
exit.
True. We're all for resiliency.
Exactly.
Where I come from.
We
So,
are. We are. And Sean, I'm glad you lawyered up. This was a great conversation.
Glad you lawyered up.
All right.
You
We did.
get it.
All right. Yeah.
guys.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for all of you, stay tuned. There may be something else coming up.
There may
I
be.
think we're maybe from the car. We don't know. On the way back to LA.
Well, I have one more chance to see if I can throw my voice out.
Oh yeah, you still have some
one
voice
more.
left. All right,
And
good.
I have a little voice left.
All right, itspmagazine.com/RSAC 2025.
Not 2020, just 25.
Oh, there is. Oh yeah, just 25.
RSAC 25. Yeah.
There you go.
I know.
Good thing
I
you're
like the
there.
shorter, the better.
You like to play tricks on me.
That's right.
All right, we're out.
Thank
All
you.
right, cheers.